Hello, everybody. Before we begin today's episode, I must remind you all that I am not a registered financial advisor. I am not a financial professional. I am not giving financial advice, and this is for entertainment purposes only. Opinions are my own. Now, before we begin the episode, I must remind you all to always consult a financial professional when making any decision about your short term or long term financial future. Now, welcome to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bazaar. And this is the first ever episode of Zeeconomics. It's going to be a podcast series where I cover just a variety of interesting things. For example, it'll be all business and investing news related. As I've said in my disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor and I'm not giving financial advice. Now, we've got a big list of topics today, and one thing I kind of want to do with this podcast is kind of jump into there's a lot to do in the business world and the investment world, and I kind of want to jump into all of it. Obviously, you can't do that in one episode. So I want to make a series. And so for people that don't know, I'm very knowledgeable in big tech, especially. So I'm going to have something that I call the Look Into It series, and it's going to start off this episode today with us looking into Microsoft. It's going to start off with a look-in series of all the big tech companies. Today's company is Microsoft. Now, folks, we've got a big list of topics for today. It's not going to be a very long episode. Don't you worry. I'm not going to have you sitting here for hours on end listening to me ramble. I got some interesting things on the table for us. I got Microsoft that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a certain industry that I think is underlooked and is going to be a huge moneymaker in the future. We're going to talk about some business news that's I guess it's not new news because it's a little old, but because of this is the first episode, I kind of wanted to cover it here. And finally, we're going to jump into the last little bit. We're not going to talk a lot about it, but I feel like we kind of have to touch on it, is Bitcoin. So let's get it started. Microsoft, as many know, it's a huge software company. Everybody knows about the Surface tablets, the Surface laptops. I think everyone knows what Microsoft is back from probably Windows 95. Majority of computers in the household run on the Windows operating system, so a lot of people know what Microsoft is, and we know the variety of office products they have. For people that don't know, they're really big into the big tech space, obviously, with industry solutions. They've got their own data like network or data server called Microsoft Azure. It kind of rivals with Amazon Web Services and the like. They've got a lot of good products, a lot of useful products. I actually used to work, I don't anymore, I used to work for an IT consulting firm that was a Microsoft partner, so I actually got to see a lot behind the scenes and kind of what went on with that entire industry. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is I really like Microsoft. I really think it's a smart buy, regardless on the stock price, regardless on what it is. And again, I'm not giving you the advice to buy. I'm just saying I like Microsoft in general. One of the reasons is it has already shifted, all right? It has already started to shift into making its own chips for all its like hardware and whatnot, and it wants to probably start making chips for other companies and to just be adaptable in general. Now, people might not think that's a big deal, but I'm going to be honest, with the way technology is coming, computer chips, processing chips, and the like are becoming very, very, very necessary. They're becoming very imperative in any kind of technology that we make today. These chips are kind of what drives everything for people that don't know. And there's a huge market to be made. Intel, AMD, those are two companies that we know make microchips and make just chips in general. And it's a big market. It's a very profitable market. I know Amazon has already jumped into the space, but Amazon is a giant like no other, and we can't compare the two in that regard. So one thing I like about Microsoft is they already have the hardware and the tech down and the software, and now they're transitioning into the chip development sector, which is very, very smart. And if they could become, and they probably will, if they become a dominant player with that as well, and not just make chips for their own stuff, which I think will be the end goal of this. So obviously going to tailor it to Microsoft products at first, but they will expand out. I really like that. That's a huge power move for them. Um, Something too that I think people didn't really understand when big tech started to come about is how necessary it was going to be able to adapt to every industry. And you might be like, well, Z, what do you mean by that? And I kind of mean you need to be able to serve. Here's okay. Let me rephrase that. When it comes to technology, you need to be able to serve whoever wants your product. And people might say that's very hypocritical and nonsensical and whatever, and I understand that. But with the way the world is, everyone needs tech. And if your tech is only it's targeted at a certain group, certain business, certain sector, or it can only do a limited amount of things, the way that innovation is going right now, let's not even talk about Moore's Law, right? The way that innovation is going right now in general with technology, you can't be stagnant. You can't be complacent. You gotta keep moving forward, and you really gotta expand. Vertical integration, and people that say, well, that's monopoly, that's dominating market. I understand that, but vertical integration is so important in a company. People don't understand that. One thing Microsoft's really good at is obviously vertical integration. We touched on that with the chip development and whatnot. But one thing they're really good at too is adaptability. They've continuously seen what the market has wanted and shifted that way. The 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 dawn of Azure was huge for them. Azure has everyone is thinking AWS because of the all the big companies use that as their servers. Well, newsflash, people, a lot of medium-sized, small-sized, and even large-sized company use the Microsoft suite, whether it be Azure and all the products, whether it be its industry solutions. Microsoft Azure is a dominant player in the web space, and that's just the reality of it. I don't think people realize, and I've seen the way the pricing goes on for this stuff, people, and it is wild. There's a lot of money to be made in it. It's data. We know how valuable data is, and you really can't put a price on it anymore. If you ask any company, I guarantee you they'll tell you their IT sector is always asking for more money, but especially when it comes to their data governance, anything to do with data in general. I guarantee you they will tell you that's why a big part of the reason they're trying to get this money. Now, one thing Microsoft has done is expand its industry solution ability. They want to be able to go into healthcare. They want to be able to go into agriculture. They want to be able to go into pretty much any type of industry you can imagine. And they've really developed not just Azure, but just their product offering in general. They have developed it into such a wide variety of products, services, and just overall abilities that they serve so many customers. And it comes down to market power and market buying power. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not comparing Amazon and Microsoft, so people that are going to be listening to this and they're going to get angry because they love Amazon. I'm not saying Microsoft is a bigger or better company than Amazon. But Amazon, realistically, it's when you look at it from a retail perspective and from its AWS perspective, it really doesn't hit as many sectors as you would think. Okay, like it hits more a bigger demographic of people, yes, but it doesn't hit a bigger number of sectors in the business world, in just the real world in general, because of what they do. Now, obviously, Amazon makes a crap load of money, and I'm not going to deny that. And like I said, I'm not even going to say Microsoft's bigger, but what I'm saying is Microsoft has such a far reach on everything already. One thing too is, like I said, the ability to adapt, and I keep kind of going over that. They're continuously showing, hey, they saw what relying on other people's supply chains did during this pandemic, and I think that's part of the reason they've made that shift to producing, or they've put the investment to start producing their own chips. Let me rephrase that more correctly. I've got a lot written down here, folks. One sec. Now, one thing too, and people, you might not like this, and I'm not saying I'm for this, but I mean it's a business move. You got to have a strategy, and it's at the end of the day to be as profitable, as successful, and as, I guess, knowledgeable in a sense of knowing your customer and knowing what's going on in the world. And one thing Microsoft did is they did a perpetual cut to their Office Suite support, and obviously, and that was by 50%. And they raised the price of the support by 10%. And you might say, what is going on? Why are they doing that? One thing they're trying to do is a lot of the Office products that they've cut are for the big corporate companies, the big large companies. They're trying to drive those companies to buy into bigger, better, and more expansive services they have. Azure, for one, I guarantee you a lot of those companies don't use Azure that probably could be using Azure. And there's a big amount of money to be made there for not just Microsoft, but the people that are implementing and managing Azure as well. A lot of people don't do in-house IT as you would think. Now, again, you can say, well, that's scummy, that's slimy. I'm not going to disagree, and I haven't looked into it fully to see if they cut the quote-unquote little person's product. Did they make it harder for me and say you, the retail consumer, to get these products, get the support? Did they raise the price on us? I didn't look that deep into it, and I don't believe that that's what they did, because from what I've been reading and looking, this was a target to get the big corporate companies to use Azure. And here's the thing. Azure, you pay by like data refresh, basically. That's the simplest way I can explain it. And you will say, well, Phil, they want to get the small, medium-sized companies on Azure too. No, that's not how that works. If you don't have a use for Azure, you're not going to have data on Azure. And if you don't have data on Azure, Microsoft's not going to charge you, or they technically can't in a sense. So I'm going to be honest. I just don't think that would be their game. And again, you can say, well, corporate America, the corporate sector, that's not what we do here, people, okay? It's not what we do here. One thing, and again, I keep lamenting the ability to adapt. And again, I don't talk, this is for entertainment purposes only. This is for fun. We're kind of just talking, talking finance, talking business. It is what it is. So one thing that I believe in is the need to really adapt, I guess, habits in a way to better serve our environment. And you see a lot of shift happening in bigger companies that way. Adidas makes a lot of their shoes and products out of recycled material. One thing Microsoft is really trying to do is to make fully recyclable or recycled products. So, for example, their Surfaces, their like the Surface tablets, the laptops, all that kind of stuff. They want those to be fully recycled products in the sense that they were made from being fully recycled. So, obviously, I'm not going to say, oh, that's just a move for publicity, because that's not just what it is. I'm sure at the end of the day that actually is cost effective when you finally figure out the processes to it. But it is a good look for them. It is a really good look for them. And we understand what PR means to not just a company and not just a brand, but a person. So I think that's a really good point for them. Now, one thing Microsoft has done as well, and I guess, if you're not a data expert, you might not realize how big of or so let me rephrase that, because I'm not a data expert. If you're not a data enthusiast, you're not going to probably realize how big of a deal what I'm about to say is. So Microsoft plans on expanding their data center blueprint from 3 million servers to kind of an undisclosed number. And they want to expand it all over the world. They've already started setting up data centers in Indonesia, and I believe they're targeting other countries kind of in that area, kind of same situation. You can say like economically and political wise, like, or government wise, I think they're targeting kind of the same kind of countries in that way, trying to expand their tech ability and their, I guess, broaden the range of abilities of the country, or they broaden their range of reach to a country. Either way, that's a good. I'm not saying that's a good look. Let me rephrase that. That's a good move for them, because with with what globalization does to the world and what it does to developing countries and emerging markets, that's just another market segment to tap into for a company. And obviously, there's a lot. In general, like if you can tap into a country that's kind of been untapped, first of all, barriers to entry are probably high. But once you get in, you're probably going to be the dominant player in that space for a bit until barriers of entry go down and other big competitors come in. So I think if they continue to expand their data center footprint, they're just going to get bigger and better. Their capabilities are going to range way more than what they do now. They continue to adapt and just innovate, and it just continues to amaze me what they do. And again, like I said, if you're not a data enthusiast, you might not realize what that more so means. But I personally think that's big. That's huge. I really like it. One final thing, and again, I don't really know if this is going to impact anything, but this was just a little tidbit of news. Obviously, we know Canada wants to impose that law that Australia kind of imposed and make it so Google, Facebook, and the like have to pay media companies for using their content. I'm not going to get into what I think about that. Microsoft is backing the Canadian government. They are agreeing with them. They want to join with them and force these companies to do that. And Microsoft isn't a social platform, so why do they really care? If anything, it's burdening their competitors just more in other sectors that they don't touch. So I don't know really what it means in a sense of the stock price, but it's just more so it's a power play move by them. And it's, like I said, you got to always be thinking, you always got to have a trick up your sleeve. So that's definitely that's definitely something to keep our eye on, to see kind of what goes on with that. Not in the sense of what Canada or Australia does, but to see if Microsoft continues to have the same stance they do. Overall, I think you folks can realize that I really like Microsoft. I will fully disclose, yes, I invest in it. Now, again, I'm not giving you advice to invest in it at all. I like the business model. I like the innovation. I like the track record. I like the management of it. I like everything about it. I like that they finally started to make their own branded hardware as well. The Surface tablets, the Surface computers. I have a Surface tablet, like for work, and like I said, with my past job, I worked for a Microsoft partner, so I got to see a lot of that stuff. I seen one day, folks, this massive Microsoft kind of like smartboard, I guess you could say, and it was pretty freaking cool. Useful, I don't know, but it was pretty cool. So look into Microsoft if you want. Look into what it would mean to the world, okay, if Microsoft continued to innovate. And why I say that is, got people, this pandemic, and then I'm not even getting into the pandemic, don't worry, but I'm just saying this pandemic caused the work from home era, yes, but what it also caused is the acceleration of digitalization of a lot of the workplace. And whether that be corporate, small business, university, government, you name it, any kind of sector, any industry, any whatever you want to call it, segment, variety of terms we could use. The pandemic just accelerated. Okay, it accelerated the digitalization of the workplace. Sorry, folks, I had knocking going on in the hallway, got a little distracted. Now, that's good news as well. And let's be honest, what company offers an array of technology and digitalization like Microsoft does. Let's really think about it, folks. We have all the Windows compatible computers like Dell, HP, and the like. That they sell hardware. The software is the MS and the Intel chip, and you all know it, folks. And soon it won't be an Intel chip; it'll be or even an AMD chip. It's going to be a Microsoft chip. How do I put it? They they don't nearly go into what Microsoft does. All right, let's look at Apple. Well, Apple's a really good example. Yes and no. Apple realistically is for the retail. Okay, realistically it's for the retail person, the retail buyer. Microsoft is really the focus of business, of efficiency. It's really built on making processes faster with Word. Gets rid of the pen and paper type of model spreadsheets. We know what that probably did for the accounting world and just mathematics in general. PowerPoint, instead of creating these big trifolds and whatnot, we like I don't need to go into it. That's simpleton stuff. I understand. They hit everything. They hit corporate. They hit small business. They hit retail. They hit large business. They can hit government. They can hit nonprofit. They can hit it all. Apple really is so focused on one sector. But now here's the thing. We'll get in. I think Apple will be next week, so we'll get into Apple next week. But Apple has a different, I guess, model, and we'll get into that later. But Microsoft is a huge. They are a huge power player in just the tech industry in general. And I'm a big fan of theirs. A big fan of theirs. So, folks, go look into Microsoft. Tell me what you think. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not going to talk about their stock price right now. I'm not going to talk about any kind of thing like a dividend or whatever it may be. So, yeah, go look into it. All right. Let's move on to like I said, there's an industry I think that's untapped in a sense, and I think it's about to explode. Let's talk about it. Oat milk. Yes, I said oat milk. So the reason I'm saying oat milk, folks, is the simple fact of alternative milks are becoming more and more popular every day, and we can see the increase in that. Did you know the demand for oat milk surged from September of 2019 to September 2020 by 300? I have the exact number here, folks. 303.7. 303.7%. That was the increase in sales from just 1 year, literally 1 year. That is insane. One thing about oat milk people don't understand either is, one, it's the best for baking in terms of alt milks. We're going to call them alt milks, alternative, but I'm lazy when it comes to stuff like that. Excuse me, folks. We got alt milks. One thing too, it's the only oat milk that isn't and in milk in general, because we know people who are lactose intolerant and just regularly allergic to dairy. Oat milk is not associated with any allergies. It's the only milk and only oat milk that is not associated with any allergies. That's huge. That's huge. So that's one thing I really think we need to keep our eye on, folks. I'm not I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just kind of this is for entertainment purposes only, and I'm just kind of giving you my perspective. It's my opinion. And one thing I like to do is, I like to look at people's habits. So, alt milk is making a huge, like we've already said, and everybody knows, alt milk is making a huge rise in the market. Demand for it has been crazy the last few years. We got the advent of almond milk. We got oat milk. We got soy milk. We got the soy boy clan. Okay, I know they out there. It's inside joke. Well, not an inside joke, but people that watch Valuetainment will understand. Listen. You got to understand habits, and we see the habit of alt milk. First of all, people weren't meant to digest dairy, and I'm not going to get into that either, but people are becoming more aware of their health. People are becoming more aware of what they put on their bodies, and some people, whether it be for the humane purposes, whether it be for, moral purposes, whether it be for health. It can be for any kind of purpose. A lot of people are starting to switch from regular dairy to alternative dairies. And I think alt milk's going to be the leader in that. And I'm no expert on that, so I'm not going to act like I am, but it sounds like a lot of people say it's the closest to consistency to regular milk, closest to taste in a sense, closest to usability, so baking and stuff like that, using it for cooking. And again, it has no allergies. One of the issues is the production of it, is how much it costs. And that's just because we haven't innovated, we haven't really developed that area yet, because it's, again, kind of a new alt milk in a sense. Or the demand for it is new. Let me phrase it like that. So one thing I like to do is you got to look at habits. Alt milk, like we explained. Then we got to say, okay, who's making the investment? Well, folks, Synopta made the investment. Synopta made the smart investment of investing $26 million into the processing facility ability and capabilities of oat milk. I saw that, and I made a move. I won't say what I did, but I made a move. I think that's huge. I see that, and I think that's okay. Let's keep our eye on this. And finally, one thing that matters is the management team. I believe in Synopta. The brand is good. We know they have a huge already, how do I put it? A huge customer base in a sense. Like, there's a lot of customer loyalty with the Synopta brand. I do know that. So I saw that and I thought to myself, that's huge, folks. That's huge. That's something we got to look at. Now, obviously, and again, I'm not talking about the stock price, but obviously a company like Synopta is probably more affordable to the retail trader or the, I guess, everyday listener of this podcast than, say, a Microsoft, an Amazon, a Tesla. We could think Berkshire Hathaway. There's, a few companies. I named some of the big ones for some reason. Probably not the best example, but yeah. It's not a bad idea to look into smaller companies like this that really, how do I put it, hone in on consumer habits, because that's what really drives investment, is demand. We're not going to talk about what we've been going through the last probably year in the stock market right now, but what truly drives the price and the worth of something is the demand of it. And demand for oat milk is going up, and I continue to only see it skyrocket. And they're, like I said, they've put the investment to make it a lot cheaper to produce, and that's a huge move. It's a huge move. So that is, I'm not saying that's a buy, folks, but that's a very, very good signal in my opinion. Finally, one last thing I want to talk about Synopta is the exposure that they have to other products in terms of their other alt milks. And we won't get into any other products, but just a company like that already has, I guess, a dominant footing in so many different products in a sense, and can get so many different kind of customers. They make an investment like that on a product that's just continuing to need. It's not meeting the supply is not meeting its demand. The price of oat milk will come down eventually because of this investment. Maybe not for all alt milk brands, but the people that put for example, Synopta, the price of oat milk of the Synopta brand will come down eventually, and that is a huge move because, like we've seen, 303.7% in 1 year time. That's how much demand surged, and I think it's only going to continue. Like, for example, we've got a lot of the millennials now hitting the kind of pre-adult or early adult phase now. So a lot of them are having kids, whatever it may be. We all know the whole baby with the milk, the formula, whatever. I'm not a child care expert. I don't have a child, so I'm not going to make sense of it. But you just got to look at where milk is used and where milk can be replaced. And milk can be replaced in early childhood feeding. It could look like early milk can be replaced when it comes to kids having cereal. Like, a lot of these millennial parents might make the conscious choice to put alt dairy in their house instead of regular dairy. That's something to think about, folks. That's something to look into. I think Synopta is a good. It's a really good signal. It's a really good sign what we're seeing. So, yeah, that's that. Every kind of episode, we're going to go into an industry or a kind of company that I think is a hidden gem. And this is this week's hidden gem. And I really like it. Now, I want to get into a little bit of business news. Now, again, this isn't like crazy new. But I wanted to touch on it I just want to bring up something. Sorry, folks. I want to touch on it because basically it's going to, I don't know if it'll have rippling effects, okay? But what it's going to do is change the image potentially, and it could have an impact on the way operations go. The news I'm speaking of is Jeff Bezos' announcement to step down as the head of Amazon. Now, let's talk about that real quick. People might say, well, what's going on with Amazon? Do we sell Amazon? Is Amazon going under? No, folks. That's the richest man in the world. He's got money into the Washington Journal. He's got money into Blue Origin. He's got money into EV companies. He's got money into anything possible. And it just got to, and I knew this was going to happen with this guy. It got to a point where he had to be like, all right, I love Amazon. This is my baby. But I'm so stretched out everywhere that it's better if I step down as the Amazon CEO. He's going to be the chair or the head of the board or whatever it may be. And then he's going to take an overarching look and view onto everything else. I really, really think that's good for a number of reasons for him. One, maybe these projects he's working on, like Blue Origin, will accelerate now and go even faster. A guy like him, you always need to reinvent yourself. And you saw what he made Amazon into. You see what it is. You see the capabilities of it, and you see how they've expanded it, all the vertical integration, how they've reached out into different sectors, different product offerings. It's insane. I love it. But like I said, you always got to reinvent yourself. And I'm sure he was maybe getting bored or getting tired of it, but this was probably a really good move for him personally, one, but two, for just the Amazon umbrella in general. Everything's probably going to move a lot faster and efficient now. And he's probably going to be able to play a bigger hand in things that he wants to, which is really cool. Now, let's talk about his taking over. Mr. Andy Jassy. Jassy or Jazzy? I'm going to say Jazzy. Mr. Andy Jassy. He's worked at Amazon for 24 years. He actually, how do I put it? He was the CEO of Amazon Web Services before this, so he's actually the guy that made the decision to take down Parler. And I'm not getting into that, but just kind of showing you that he has been a big player before. Like he's not foreign to a role like this. So you move the CEO of probably your most successful and richest sector, other than like the retail Amazon, into the full Amazon CEO, which is smart. You see what Amazon Web Services has become and what it does. You see all the big name customers it has. You see how it's reaching out into a lot of other parts of the world as well. You look at what he did to AWS, you got to think Amazon itself is in good hands with this guy named Andy Jassy. I don't know a lot about him. He had an interview, I think it was 2 years ago on CNN. I remember I watched it. He's a smart guy. Like you just listen to him, and you know he's smart. You can tell he's got a good head on his shoulders. I'm not saying he's a good person. I don't know him like that. I'm more so saying like you know that he's not going to make a stupid move when it comes to the operations of Amazon or the PR of it. So I think Amazon's in good hands. I don't really think it actually means much for the company going forward in the sense of changes. It's just succession planning. It's just being more efficient in different ways too. And I mean that with using both Jeff Bezos' time and probably everybody else's time. Overall, like I said, I don't think it's actually going to have a huge rippling effect. I don't think it's really going to mean much. It's something I wanted to cover because it is pretty big news when the Amazon of one of the biggest companies, but two, technically the richest man in the world, steps down. So that was something I definitely wanted to cover, and I'm really interested to see what Jeff Bezos does from here on. Blue Origin, he didn't really talk a lot about Blue Origin, but I actually think that's where he's going to be making his mark next, because we know him and Elon are in a little friendly competition for years now, and we see what SpaceX has become. So I think he's really going to try to get Blue Origin up into the level SpaceX is. So yeah, that's that. And now, folks, on to our last segment of the day. Again, remember, I said this would be nice and short. We're kind of aiming for around the 45-minute mark. We don't want to keep you forever. So, Bitcoin. We're not going to get into what blockchain is this episode, don't worry. We're not going to get into the whole idea of what Bitcoin even is this episode. Let's talk about the exposure. Let's talk about why it's being talked about right now. Let's talk about the price. And again, I want to talk about the price to illustrate what is going on right now. And let's talk about who owns it, not from a retail perspective. So, before we begin, you all probably have heard of Bitcoin, especially if you're listening to this podcast. I assume you know what Bitcoin is. And if you don't, it's cryptocurrency. What is a cryptocurrency? A cryptocurrency is a type of token or a type of asset that is traded on something called the blockchain. Like I said, we will not be getting into what the blockchain is this episode for time purposes. Now, Bitcoin itself, it's like, just think of it as electronic money, electronic transfer. You buy something, you go pay with your credit card. Well, instead I want to pay with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a number, like a price associated with it. Let's check out Bitcoin's, because Bitcoin is 24/7. Like, the cryptocurrency market is open 24/7, folks. So Bitcoin's price is always changing. All right. In Canadian dollars, it's $59,336. For business purposes, let's move that to the USD. Let's see, USD. It is at $47,026. Folks, and it hit a high at one point, it looks like, of 57K, almost 60K. Folks, Bitcoin is obviously worth a lot. So, well, Bitcoin is worth, like we said, around 47, 48K USD. That's insane. You can buy parts of a Bitcoin. So before you say, well, Phil, how am I going to buy a Bitcoin, man? I got you covered, okay? Well, I don't got you covered. I'm not a financial advisor, but little secret, I guess. Not a secret. Everyone knows this, but you can buy parts of a Bitcoin or partial Bitcoin. So, for example, when I buy Bitcoin, I never buy an entire Bitcoin. I buy a price amount. So, let's say I throw $750 into Bitcoin. I bought $750 worth of Bitcoin at the time. It gives you the number of Bitcoin you have. It's a decimal number, obviously, if you don't buy a full one. But yeah, that's kind of how that part works. Like, in simpleton terms, that's how that works. So, Bitcoin, obviously, it makes a rise because a lot of people just buy it and price goes up. Bitcoin also has a finite number. 21 million coins will be in circulation forever. And what I mean by that is there's only going to be 21 million. There's never going to be more. What happens is every 4 years as well, don't really understand. Well, I understand it, but I don't understand it enough to explain it at the moment, is Bitcoin releases a finite or a certain number of coin, I guess you could say, every 4 years. So all the Bitcoin hasn't even been floated out there, and after you have to mine it, and again, we won't really get into that, but you need a lot of computing ability and IT people to be able to mine these Bitcoin. So, how did Bitcoin come into the plane of the business world and society in general? Well, we know the 2017, 2018 boom, when it hit, like, what was it, 20K American, and that was big. It had a huge crash. And a few months ago is when it was picking up momentum probably for a while, but it really picked up momentum in the last, like, 4 or 5 months. Probably, yeah, last, like, 3, 4, 5 months. Now, That's insane to see the price jump that it had in that little time. Let's actually go quickly look, folks. Again, in a month, in 1 month, it's jumped from 32.5K USD to right now 47K USD. In 1 month. That's an insane rise, people, right? Let's go 1 year. Okay, obviously it's gonna be insane. 87,000. Well, we'll say 88. Sorry, not 87,000. Not 87,000. We're gonna say 8,800 instead of 8,700 because we'll round up. 8,800 to 47K in 1 year. Now, obviously, that's gonna make news if something jumps in worth or value that much in that short amount of time. It's gonna make news. If it does it for a second time, like it has now this year, it's gonna make big news. What it has done, it caused a lot of people to get educated into what Bitcoin is and what it can be. Now, I'm not going to talk about really, do I believe in it? Do I like it? Or what do I think of it? I'm here to kind of lament what's going on with it right now. Now, a lot of people, a lot of retail buyers, they were the ones predominantly buying the Bitcoin before. A lot of people made a lot of money. A lot of people lost a lot of money. How do I put it? It's an investment. At the end of the day, it's an investment. It's looked at as an asset. If I could look at it as trading cards as an asset, why can't I look at Bitcoin as an asset, right? So, with that being said, it's an asset class now. And now people got to think about it. And people also got to think of how they're going to use it. Remember, folks, what did I talk about earlier? Habits, consumer habits. Do people not trust the current financial system? Maybe. Do people realize privacy is such a valuable, I guess we'll call it a commodity today? Yes, definitely. Do we realize that, hey, you really do need to not put all your eggs in one basket as well? 100%. So, with that being said, the price of Bitcoin started to go up and up and up. So, what you had is certain companies, and we will get into the big news ones for a second, but you had PayPal. PayPal is in the business of transactions. It's not in the business of making a payment. It's in the business of transactions between person to person. They made it so you can pay or receive, well, basically pay in Bitcoin on PayPal now. People might say, well, Phil, why is that a big deal? Once a company like that with that much market exposure and customer loyalty creates the ability to maybe change a habit, it's a big deal. Because if more and more people start using Bitcoin to, maybe say, buy and sell things, well, the use value of it goes up as well. And not only does the use value go up, it's just the intrinsic monetary value. So, with that being said, if Bitcoin's needed for more and more things, it's going to be more and more valuable. And if it's more and more valuable, the price of it's going to jump. That's the reality. Now, like I said, remember, it's a digital currency. Like I said, we're not going to really get into what it exactly is in this episode. This episode is just talking about what's going on. We had a lot of companies added to their quote-unquote balance sheets. We had, well, this one shouldn't be a surprise, but we had MicroStrategy added to their balance sheet. Now, why I say that's not a surprise is their CEO is Michael Saylor. MicroStrategy is a software company, long story short. Michael Saylor has been investing heavily into Bitcoin. He loves it. It's ridiculous. I believe that, let's see, I have the exact number right here, folks. Right now, it seems that MicroStrategy holds around 71,000 BTC in reserve. That is the equivalent to over $3 billion USD, apparently. Now, this article was written, I think, beginning of February, though, that I'm reading. So maybe it's not worth $3 billion now, but it's still probably worth billions. Don't get me wrong. So it's ridiculous. At one point, here's a little funny tidbit. At one point, MicroStrategy CEO Mikey Saylor, I guess, was buying $1,000 in Bitcoin every second, and that's insane. You can time up market trades or timing trades, so we'll get into that. Wow, folks. So obviously, you have a big company like them, add Bitcoin to the balance sheet so they can have a more. They can. One, it's an investment, and it's one to add to the balance sheet and an investment and for monetary purposes. Also, it's to serve more customers in a sense. It's to open up their market segment. It's to open up their availability to others, I guess. That's what people say. Another company. We all know this one. Tesla. Tesla bought, what was it? I think 1.5 billion. There we are. And they bought around 1.5 billion USD of Bitcoin not too long ago. But I think beginning of February, was it? Yeah. So something like that is insane. You have big companies like that, and their reasoning was the same: added to the balance sheet for monetary purposes, budgeting reasons, and mainly to serve another customer segment to expand the availability of the product. So if you're going to continue to have big companies like these two, and we'll get into some of the other companies next episode. If you have companies like these two get into this, that's when it starts to become worth a lot. So what we know is Bitcoin's starting to become at least held by some of the big players, like MicroStrategy, like Tesla. We're hearing some of the big banks want to add it to their balance sheet as well. If the big players get it, it's going to drive the price even more. And if the big players get it, it's going to drive the usability and the adaptability to everyday transactions even more. We're already seeing the blockchain be used in something called NFTs. We will not talk about it and get into that to this episode, so don't even worry. Blockchain is starting to be implemented in a wide variety of ways. Bitcoin is its currency. It's not, but I think people know what I mean when I say that it's currency. It's the most closest thing related with the blockchain in terms of currency. So there's a lot of different cryptocurrencies, folks. So that's what's going on with Bitcoin. We're going to keep our eye on it, folks. We're going to have a little status report for next week's episode. I don't know how long we're going to cover Bitcoin for, but I do see it being covered in the near future. So that's actually all I have for today, folks. Thank you for tuning in to the first ever episode of Zeeconomics. This is where we talk business news, we talk investment news, and we just talk to talk. We talk to have fun. Again, thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate the time. Have a good one, folks. I'll see you next time.